All right, guys. Welcome. I guess we'll get started now. Thanks for coming. My name is Nathan Magniez. I'm going to be giving you a talk on body hacking 101, or as I like to call it, maintaining a healthy lifestyle as a road warrior. Before I get into that, just a little bit of brief background about myself and where I came from. Again, my name is Nathan. I already said that. I'm a service enablement architect with Octave. My contact information is here if you'd like to contact me in the future. I'll present it again at the end. But a little bit about myself, besides what I actually do for a living, is that I started my career initially in the Marine Corps as soon as I got out of high school. I was a very active person, and I maintained what I consider my best title ever is a Marine hacker. That's pretty much the coolest title I've ever actually had before. So basically did hacking for the Marine Corps. Still, besides being behind the keyboard, actually having to wake up at 5 in the morning and being forced to run by people that are screaming at me, stuff like that. So I was very active, if you can imagine, and pretty stressed out. And I could eat and drink pretty much anything I wanted to, right? So as I left the Marine Corps, I went into a job that was doing instant response. And pretty much, if you've ever done instant response here, has anyone ever put out a fire before? So this is pretty much my life. Everything was fine. Everything was going okay. I'm eating the same way I used to, and I'm still doing everything I've done before. And I was, packing on a little bit of weight, right? So I was still being active. I did CrossFit. I did weightlifting. Everything I did before in the past. I moved on. Even more sedentary lifestyle. I became a pin tester. I really love ballpoint pins. This is an IT conference, right? Okay. Yeah. So I did penetration testing, which is even a worse phrase, I think, when you say to people that don't understand hacking. So I penetrate things. But anyways, I started packing on some of the pounds, right? It just happens over a progression of timeline, right? I started to grow the beard out, get a little grizzly. But anyways, some of the things I mentioned before, some of my problems I had with this is that my background with all this stuff is that I was used to a certain lifestyle that I had in my mindset, and I just kept with myself, right? And that including eating very large portion sizes. So including when I went on gigs, I would get the extreme size ribeye, right? If I ever make it out to Texas, and I think it's El Paso with the Texan, I'm going to get that 72-ounce steak at least once. Yeah, Amarillo? Okay. Yes. Yeah. But this is pretty much the size of steak I would normally eat every day, and then just add on some bacon on top of that, right? I also was used to being in the Marine Corps and drinking like a maniac. So, Stone Cold right there. He's got a lot of hands. I was also staying up a little bit too late, just being a dickhead on the internet. So, trying to learn, trying to drink. I think that's a Smirnoff Ice, if I believe correctly. My friend Renee right there. Shout out, he's my NF. Anyways. Staying up too late, but I was basically doing all the things, I guess in my mindset now, wrong, right? I was not paying attention to it and being mindful. And the biggest flaw I think that I had with myself is that I was right. I was so SMRT, right? I knew everything. But there was so much conflicting information coming from all different sorts of sources, right? There was things telling me to do paleo, low-carb paleo, and stuff like that. And if anyone does any of these diets I'm talking about now, I'm not trying to downsize them at all, but I just had all of these things, and I tried to make a secret squirrel program basically around them. I tried to be smarter than the people that were telling me to do X, Y, and Z, because all those things will actually work if you do them, but you have to be mindful about what it is that you're actually doing, which the biggest takeaway from this thing is caloric deficit. You have to actually make it work for you. So I was doing CrossFit, I was doing paleo, keto, Windler 5 through 1 running a lot, You know, Marine Corps, you run as far as you can until you die, basically. But what I had to realize is that there is actually nothing revolutionary about science, or excuse me, there's nothing revolutionary about fitness or eating, right? We all have to eat to live. So everything at this point is just evolutionary. We take the basics and then we expand upon them, right? So as a visual image, stone wheel all the way up to, we're not going to reinvent the wheel, we're just going to make it better, right? There's basics that we actually have to adhere to. So one of the things that caught me up a little bit was cult dieting. I got kind of wrapped into certain things and started drinking some Kool-Aid. And I say cult dieting because there is no single best diet out there, in my honest opinion. However, if you log on to the internet, has anyone ever been on the internet before? Right? There are a plethora of people that will tell you who claim this, right? So from vegans to low-carb people, low-carb, paleo, keto, Atkins diets, they are right and you are wrong. And they will let you know extremely how you're wrong. And it kind of becomes an emotional response to this. And I kind of wanted to take away, like, step away from emotion a little bit and try to get into more of a rational thought process about this. So the truth is that most people who break away from socially normal eating standards are typically under the assumption that they're making a rational choice, right? You're influenced by your news feed or your cultural bias of health. So if you're presented with information, an argument which favors your particular way of eating, you agree with this argument, right? You make a totally rational decision to follow the diet that fits your bias, right? Just kind of like the quote that there's no journalist that is unbiased except for the one that agrees with me 100% of the time. So you only influence your own biases, right? Which was what I was falling into all the time. But in my opinion, it's a trap. In my opinion, like I said before, there is no best diet out there. So, on to biases here. I mentioned before that your diet, your bias, and identity will determine what diet fits you best. It's a pretty universal pattern for most people to reinforce what you believe in yourself or what you believe in your own lifestyle. It's really hard to make a switch in thinking about what you already have an opinion on, right? If you believe something, whether it's a political opinion, it's really hard. My ego hurts me to say this. Like, I have to admit that I was actually wrong at some points, which I'm never wrong. I used to wear a shirt that said that too when I was younger. So, like I said, admitting you made a mistake and just wasted months or years following a trend is really hard for most folks. So there are many contradicting voices out there, and if you've ever been on the internet, I believe you can agree with that. There's an information overload. It's basically the DDoS of fitness and diet out there for yourself. There's so much information coming at you that you can't actually process what you need to actually do, if that makes sense in a computer terminology. So with that, there's also the problem of superfoods, clickbait studies, and FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? We are overly exaggerating, or irrationally, I would say, exaggerating the benefits of our favorite foods, right? And we're seeing these studies pop up all the time. Drink tequila, it will help you lose weight. Drink wine, it will help you eat chocolate, it will help you lose weight, right? We take that information, it confirms our bias, and then we go about our business day to day because we saw this thing on BuzzFeed or Gawker, right? There was a study back in the day, the screenshots from, is that this, if you ever watch Adam Ruins Everything, they did a study with chocolate, and he tricked the news media into promoting the study basically about how chocolate would help you lose weight. And it was a totally fake study. Everything was fabricated, and he got published with a study on some fake site that just basically was pay for play. And it tricked the news media into actually promoting this across the board and probably hurt a lot of people. And well, he did it to one, prove that there was a bias in the media. But, in other words, you got to be mindful of what you believe inside of these studies that come out there, right? So there are studies that come out, and you just got to be mindful of your bias before I start to ramble on too much. We're also a society that's fixating. We're fixated on taking pills to solve our ills. Thank you, Dr. Seuss. Yes. All right. We're looking for quick fixes and easy outs, right? I used to be that way. I used to buy hydroxycut on the regular, just throw them down my throat, right? I want to lose weight fast. I want to lose it now. I don't want to wait for, a year from now. I want to lose it right now. So we're looking for easy outs, and that's one of the things you got to be mindful of, is just to go ahead and get rid of that. It's a slow and steady process, and we'll get to that here in a minute. We also have a problem in our community with a sedentary lifestyle. We sit in front of our computer pretty much all day, at least upon my Facebook feed. So, Twitter feed and Facebook feed. So we're in front of our computer pretty much all the time. Not only in front of our computer, but I got my personal computer in my pocket. So we're basically hunched over all the time, not doing much. We grew up, sorry, I say we, people grew up working, hunting. Then we became a agricultural society. And then we went to the Industrial Revolution, and now we're basically just sitting on the couch and doing nothing, right? We're watching TV. So this really compounds the effect. And what I want to make sure that you take away from this is that, according to a research, take that back. This really compounds the effect there. All this sitting can take away from any activity you have done, such as running or walking. So there was a study by Runner's World that said, according to a research from University of Texas, it said every unit of time, it cancels out 8% of the gain from the same amount of running. So in other words, if you run for an hour in the morning or at nighttime, it's going to go ahead and cancel out 80% of sitting down for 10 hours. So every unit of time cancels out 8%. So that makes your understanding of what you're imbibing into yourself, or your caloric intake into yourself, greatly more, more important to reaching your goals. We'll get to that shortly here about what you actually need to do that. So what I guess I want you to take away from this, and I kind of rambled on for a second, is don't fall into the trap of what I used to do, is that I worked out really hard today. I sat basically for 10 hours at my job, and then I drove for 2 hours in the car, or let's say it's 12 hours total. I sat down. And then I worked out for an hour doing CrossFit or whatever. And I was like, yeah, onion rings. Hell yeah. Like, I deserve this, right? Yeah. So don't fall into the trap of that. Not saying that onion rings are bad or anything like that, because that gets me into an emotional response, but just be mindful of that what you're actually doing to benefit your health can be negated very quickly by just being sedentary. So, anyways, on to how I actually fix this problem. There's a question out there there's a saying out there that people that are sedentary or being quote unquote unhealthy, it's an active choice that they're doing, right? But is it actually an unhealthy choice for them, right? So rampant obesity, this comes from my friend Alex, rampant obesity and unhealthy lifestyles are often stated to be self-destructive choice. I would wager that it is a mistake to presume these are choices and not an action which becomes action. So taking control of one's health is a choice, right? You make a choice to actually be involved in your own self and pay attention to what you're doing and how much you're drinking and how much you're working out or walking. The default is to not do that. So being hyper-aware of our own lifestyle choices is pretty much a luxury that a lot of people don't actually have. Or even if they don't have it, they don't understand that they don't have it. To quote Donald Rumsfeld, the unknown unknowns. So in the absence of sufficient information, which requires one, time, money, and education, you cannot A, recognize that a choice exists, and B, determine what a better choice is, and C, have the confidence to follow through on this choice. Otherwise, the default is to not consider your daily food choices. So the question, agree or disagree, as I read off the screen, that is, it's not an active choice to actually be quote-unquote unhealthy, whatever that means, but rather a lack of awareness that there truly is a choice out there. And that's for my friend Alex Viada. Does that make sense? If you don't know what you don't know, you can't really change what you need to change, right? Kind of leads me to where I kind of fixed my problem here. I clearly reached a point here where I needed to actually stop self-sabotaging myself by program hopping or making my own secret programs of diets and stuff that I thought I was so smart about. Workout programs, whatever. I had to admit to myself that my diet, fitness research up until this point had led me to less than expected results that I thought, dressing up as, King Leonidas for Halloween or something with six-pack abs or something like that, So I was never going to reach that point just by myself, right, or something stupid. So I needed to actually seek expert advice. I actually needed to have a consultant. And that's pretty much how many people in here are consultants? How many people get hired to give their expert advice on things? Yeah, so I needed to stop and hire somebody that knew more than me, basically. So I need to be less SMRT, less smart. Hire somebody else. So some of the things that hiring a consultant taught me were some basic lessons in math, basically. I mentioned before Michael Shear's taught. The biggest thing that I would like you to take away today is that calories actually matter in your lifestyle. Is that specifically what you're intaking, right? Not necessarily what you're doing to expend the calories. So if you want to be sedentary, if you don't want to change anything that you're doing, you don't want to work out, you don't want to lift weights, you don't want to run, stuff like that. I hate running, I do it, and I fall down a lot. I just hurt my ankle. So I hate doing all those things. So if you don't want to do any of those things, if you just want to do the minimum, you can go ahead and just pay attention to what you're intaking there. So these are some basic things that we see all the time. What matters in life or with your health and fitness. Calories matter. How much, specifically inside of the calories, which I don't want to get too much into right here, because we're going to get into it a little bit later. But your macro breakdown. Has anyone heard of macros before? If it fits your macros, stuff like that. So does anyone know what a macro is? Just short. Yeah. All right. Yeah, sorry. Should have just said macronutrient. Yeah. Good.
In this context, macronutrient is the overall thing, which is protein, carbs, or fat,
exactly.
Versus micronutrients like vitamins,
B12, stuff like that. Yeah. So macro is just short for macronutrient here, and what I mean by that is the protein, carbs, and fat that you intake every day, whether it be sugar out of a soda or protein out of a piece of steak, stuff like that. Fat, which is in, let's say it's not lean steak, it's a ribeye, it's got marbling, stuff like that, so that's the fat inside of it. All those things have calories that help you stay alive, and it's never good to die, bro, right? So, I haven't died once yet. I've heard it's awful, so. I don't think I've died. My friend Jeremy said I've died when I'm sleeping, so. Snoring, yeah. Sleep apnea. So that brings me to sleep here. My friend Rob Wolf, who's, if you know anything about the paleo diet, he's pretty famous with that. He once recommended, I've heard him tell it many times, to sleep as much as you can to not get fired and not get divorced. So basically, sleep as much as you can. A general recommendation, right? So a 10,000-foot overhead view. With me, it was, if I get to bed before midnight, I consider that like early, like very early. So I try to get as much as I can and still wake up at 7 in the morning, right? Also to pay attention to is water intake, your hydration. So generally recommended is that you take your body weight, wherever you are currently, and you take half of that in ounces as what you want as a minimum daily for an intake. And if you're doing any sort of exercise, every hour of exercise, add 30 ounces to that. So for a 200-pound, I'm about 215 or something like that now. I drink about a gallon a day. That's 128 ounces in a gallon. So it's roughly like half my weight.
Can you go over that formula again?
Yeah, so
your desired weight, half the ounces.
No, not your desired. Your actual body weight now.
Actual body weight.
So a lot of people will tell you to drink a gallon a day no matter what. But basically, at a minimum, take your body weight, divide it in half, and that's how many ounces you want to imbibe every day, right? And then if you're doing any sort of activity, add 30 ounces of that for every hour of cardiovascular lifting weights, stuff like that, because you're going to sweat. I'm sweating right now, so. And last one, stress, which I'm feeling a little bit right now. This is kind of subjective for everybody, right? Everyone's told to manage your stress. It's going to come down to finding things that you like to do and trying to fix whatever it is that makes you stressful, or whatever it is that you can fix. So try to alleviate the stress to the best of your ability. And I know it's a very generic thing, but it is what it is, I guess, here. It's all personal to you at that point, because I have no context of how everyone else feels, right? I can only try to empathize with you. Another thing I try to learn is to change my mindset here. You can have the best training and nutrition coach known to man, but if you don't trust it and apply it, it's going to mean nothing to you, right? You can hire the best pen tester in the world and have them hack all the things on your network, and if you don't actually do the things that they tell you to do to fix your network, it's not going to actually be applicable. It's going to have no impact, and you're going to get owned soon, right? So you have to trust the process, follow the instructions fully, trust the expert. Remember that you are the customer now. You are now the customer too, whether it is you hire a consultant or you're doing this on your own. You have to actually apply whatever formula that you're given. So if you do this on your own, I'll give you a simple formula later. If you do this on your own, you have to believe in that and actually follow it. And you can't be discouraged along the way, right? If you apply the process, trust it, it will work for you. I guess I kind of skipped that on my background a little bit. I was about 60 pounds heavier before right now. And it took me about a year to lose all that weight. I know some people can do it quicker. I did it slow and methodical, and that's all up to you. But I had to invest and trust in my trainer that I was paying money to actually get the results I was seeking. So most of us have dealt with customers not accepting your advice on security, right? We routinely see them fail and potentially get hacked, and this is not unique to just them. So we are the customer now. We have to trust the expert and follow the process. So we have to change our minds and our environment to set us up for success. This takes a lot of mental rewiring for most people. Changing habits, nailing the basics, and finding 3 habits probably that will help you succeed. And I say 3 as just a basic, throw it out there. That will probably be a general catch-all. So 1, if you're sedentary, start walking daily or join an active group that will help you at least tick off that marker there. Whether it's you want to start working out or you just want to start walking every day, that's fine. Just find 1 habit and stick to it for that category. Second one, so like as an example, if you go out to eat every day for lunch and dinner, which I routinely did, start brown bagging it to work or start cooking for yourself. Not every meal that you cook has to be a culinary masterpiece. It doesn't have to be Top Chef worthy. I have had lots of just mustard and chicken sandwiches before, just because I'm hungry and I need to go, you know. And I've also had Pop-Tarts or tacos and stuff on the way, but I know how to make those things now because I actually learned how to actually make them and took the time. And I know what's actually going into them. So on the third cat, like as an example, third one, if you're drinking often, which I don't see anybody with any beers. I see some. If you're drinking often, as we often do here, drink all the booze, right? Which is, you know, kind of this is my cheat meal weekend. Try to start reducing that intake. So if you're a person that drinks every day, 7 days a week, you go out all the time, like I used to do when I was younger in the Marine Corps, start by trying to eliminate how much you drink every night. Because if you tell someone stop drinking entirely or something like that, or eliminate everything, like I mentioned before, if you try to tell someone to eliminate things, they may stick to it for like 2 weeks, a month maybe, like a 30-day challenge, but they're going to fall back into those habits very quickly afterwards. So just start trying to make psychological impacts in your own self and make it a lifestyle choice. And if you're more informed about it, you're more likely to stick to it. Does that make sense? All right. So don't try to go all out on some of these things. Just try to make 3 habits that can help you stick to your goals. So some of the fundamentals of nutrition for fat loss, like I mentioned before, caloric deficit, flexibility, and making your own food. Again, the biggest takeaway here is caloric deficit. It has to be a priority. If your goal is to lose weight, you have to intake less than you expend. Right? Flexibility, you have to make time for yourself, learning to juggle these things. I know there's a lot of stress, like a lot of deadlines and stuff like that, but you have to make time for yourself and actually be able to apply it to yourself, because if you die, bro, it's not gonna be good, right? So you have to make time for yourself and be kind of flexible with this. And more importantly, I guess with that, besides dying, is knowing what food choices will support your goals, whether that be weightlifting or what have you, running marathons. What your goals are will determine that. So you have to also learn to make your own food, as I mentioned. It doesn't have to be a culinary masterpiece. There has to be some flexibility, right? As I mentioned before, compromise if necessary. Has anyone heard of the term semper fidelis from the Marine Corps? Always faithful. This is kind of a play off that. It's semper gumby, always flexible. Bodybuilders, physique competitors, fitness professionals, they'll often tell you that you absolutely have to weigh everything to get to reach what you're doing, right? And that's because that's their goal. They want to be, they want to be on stage and shredded and whatever. So they have to be that precise. But for the average Joe Blow, we kind of just want to look good in the mirror, right? Or good naked, I guess, right? So business people are, we really don't have that luxury to do that. So there's got to be some sort of flexibility between precision and, reality. So there's often a phrase too with moderation. It's a very subjective term for most people. It's very often, most likely less than you think it is, right? So people often say, yeah, I'll have a cheat meal, or I'll go out for this and then grab this. Those things, everything in moderation, sometimes can accumulate and take you off your track to actually reach your goals. So just be mindful of that. I'm not saying any food is actually bad. I'll get to that. There's no bad foods out there, in my opinion. But being informed about what's inside of the food that makes the food up, right? The macronutrient breakout and the caloric intake of the food will allow you to know what that indulgence actually looks like, right? And how it actually applies to your goals, whatever that may be. Another thing I have to be careful of is to make sure that activity adjustments, such as MyFitnessPal and like Fitbit and stuff like that, with weight loss tech, that I wasn't trusting it too much. If you go onto MyFitnessPal, which I actually really love that product, it will say, are you sedentary? Are you halfway active? And blah, blah, blah. And, me, myself, I was like, oh yeah, I work out, an hour a day. I'm an active person, but I'm not a lumberjack. I sit behind a computer all day long. So my estimation on what actually an active person is greatly flawed based on my bias. So just be mindful of the activity adjustments, basically how many calories you're expending on your day-to-day basis just to be alive, how that fits into your goal. Users often underestimate, and then products often overestimate, which can lead to no results at best and weight gain at worst. So just buyer beware here. Just be mindful of that. There was a study recently among young adults. They did weight loss, and I think they did DEXA scans too as well. With a group of people for 24 months, so 2 years. People that wore technology devices, they lost less weight than the people that just basically made the same changes to their plan and didn't use the technology. So I don't know if you've seen that with wearing a Fitbit can make you gain weight recently, but basically my takeaway from that study is that you look at what you did. Like if I go run on the treadmill and it says I lost 600 calories and my goal is to eat 2,000 calories a day or something crazy like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, I've only intaked 2,000 today and I've lost 600 from running. I could eat this extra donut or the slice of pizza or whatever you love, and that could just be untrustworthy because it's basically just a very rough estimation. It can be, I think, up to like 50% inaccurate, just depending on yourself.
If tech is inaccurate in telling us our daily caloric intake values, what would you suggest as an alternative?
As an alternative to
MyFitness?
Well, no. So I love MyFitnessPal, right? So, but what I'm saying here is like when you say like I'm an active person on that thing, I would recommend just saying sedentary and or I have a formula here later to actually like kind of go over what you should intake. And again, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a doctor, so it's not medical advice, but it's just a general rough guideline of what should lead and is generally acceptable from recommendations I've seen from lots of other people that works for them. But yeah, just buyer beware with all those things. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, having some realistic expectations here. We often see like a lot of diets that encourage starving yourselves. I don't want to like name certain names with some of these, but like they're hypocaloric, meaning like you're basically starving yourself. You're eating like 500 calories a day, maybe 700, something like that for a male, or 1,000 for a female, something like that. Very, very, very low. We don't really want to do that. It's a very slow and steady process. There's a difference between fat loss and weight loss. And a lot of people are very caught up with your scale. Does that make sense? The numbers on the scale. Fat loss is a slow and steady process. You need to trust that process, and it shouldn't be fast. So the most extreme weight loss programs will show you results on the scale, but most likely it will be water weight and muscle glycogen, which will come back later when you start refeeding yourself. There's a difference between fat and weight loss. We're looking to actually burn fat, right? If we're losing weight, that's what my concern was. So I'm assuming if you're in here, that's probably one of your concerns. We're looking to lose fat and not actual muscle mass, right? Because muscle mass is hard earned, and if you lose that weight, it's not going to come back very quickly. We want to keep all that lean body mass. So a general recommendation is about, realistically, for fat loss is to be about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds, at most 2 pounds a week. So that doesn't look very sexy on screen, or updating your status, saying I lost 10 pounds this week. That's it's not very sexy. But realistically, that's a slow and steady and healthiest potential way to go about it. That roughly equates out to about a 500 calorie deficit per day for 1 pound of weight loss per week. So that's about 3,500 calories in 7 days. We'll talk about how to determine that for you shortly here. There's also some feelings of failure here that I want to mention. Life will throw you some curveballs, You need to be forgiving of yourself, especially if it's around the holidays, DerbyCon. Definitely, you need to be mindful of the things that you're actually going to do. You need to live your life. It's not the most important thing to always be paying attention to fitness and nutrition. So life's going to throw you some curveballs. Go with it, but also be forgiving of yourself. Don't harp on yourself, and then also be honest with yourself, right? Just admit that, okay, yeah, this is a bender weekend. Now I'm getting back on the horse, right? So don't rush it. Trust the process. It's kind of like the tortoise and the hare, right? One thing I want to point out here is that in the initial weeks that you start, if you start on a course, you can lose a lot of weight in the first 2 weeks. And you're seeing that results, and then the next week you only lose a pound, and then the following week you only lose a pound, and then 1 week later you plateau. And that, losing all that weight up front can set you up for discouragement later. So just be mindful that it's a slow and steady process. At some point you're going to have to plateau and readjust where you're actually doing it. So, on to some technical, or some math portions here. We have to find what's your normal. We have to baseline our intake. Everyone familiar with the concept of baselining? Right. So I often tell students in my superior defense class that you really can't understand what is abnormal with anything without first understanding what is normal. Whether that's identifying malicious versus normal services on a computer, like what's running on a computer, or anomalies within bandwidth utilization. You first have to have a baseline of information to know what's actually going on, right? So you have to know what's normal in your environment or yourself before you can understand what you need to change about itself. So I have another quote too. Anyone with a background in process management or consulting are intimately aware of the fact that before you propose a change to a process, you need to understand what the current intake is and where it's getting them. And this is more applicable to actually health and dieting, right? You have to understand what you're actually imbibing or intaking into yourself every day to understand what's going on and where you need to make a change for that. So what that looks like is, what is your current intake? So initially, if you're starting out, you need to actually start logging everything for a week at least and seeing what you're actually doing. As I mentioned before, I was eating a healthy, that's a debatable term, a healthy diet for a long time, and I knew everything. Once I started paying attention to what I was actually intaking, all those steaks and bacon, there was a lot of calories in them. So once I started to do the math behind that, I started to know, okay, this is what's going on, right? Like I said, I was surprised when my healthy diet was so high in calories. It was making me gain weight. So weigh yourself daily, initially for that first week. Preferably at the same time of day, first thing when you wake up, and maybe post bathroom if you want to, lose a pound or two. So, but we're going to see an average over time, right? So at least a week. We're going to have a little bit of data set there. If we see an upward tick in weight there, we're going to know that maybe we're intaking too many calories on a weekly basis or a daily basis, right? So we're in a caloric surplus there. So that means we need to actually start cutting down that. If we see that we're consistent at a consistent number throughout the week, we know that we're at a baseline of normalcy. We're going to maintain where we're currently at. And whether that's fine with you or not, that's fine. But that's where your baseline is. So the baseline will tell you where to go from there. So it's simple math at this point. So we need to go ahead and start changing some of our habits to lose weight. So I'm sorry, this slide is a little bit small. There's a lot of information on it. I'm going to go through it as slowly as possible here. This is going to be kind of a foreign process to you if you're not used to paying attention to what you're taking in every day, right? If you don't, for one, if you don't want to work out, you don't want to weigh your food every day, you don't want to do anything like that, my general recommendation is to go ahead and, you don't want to be, have quote-unquote precision. Go ahead and just start with eating veggies or vegetables every day, and serving or servings of lean meats with your food every day, at least 4 times a day. So what this would look like for a woman would be 4 times daily. Take a fist size serving of vegetables. So take your fist, look at it, and if it looks roughly that size, a fist size of vegetables. A palm size serving of lean meat. So everyone has a unique palm size. So about a palm size of lean meat, not that thick, just regular size, not a huge steak. A cup hand serving of carb-dense foods such as starches, grains, fruit, whatever you would like. So there's a little bit some sort of carbohydrate besides vegetables. And then a thumb size, take your thumb, fat-dense foods. And what I mean by that is fat-dense is like nuts and seeds. If you ever look at the caloric intake of some of those things, you'll be very surprised My serving size of peanut butter is about the jar sometimes, and I've actually weighed out. If you ever want to feel really bad, go ahead and take a serving size of peanut butter and actually weigh it out, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, I love peanut butter and apples at nighttime, and it's my downfall. But back to this, so a thumb-sized serving of some of those foods, and they're very calorically dense. So anyways, back to math here. Again, with men, it's basically the same equation. It just increased a little bit based upon men generally being a little bit bigger than women, right? And that's a generalization. And it could vary. So if you're starting to do this and you start to see that you're not losing any sort of weight or gain, if your goal is to gain weight, adjust these to be a little bit more to your needs. And I have at the bottom here, Precision Nutrition. This is where I got these recommendations from. They're a very good source of information for fitness professionals and stuff like that. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, go ahead. If you would like to be a little bit more precise and start to actually, if you've made these changes and you want to go ahead and start to be a little bit more precise with this stuff, we can go ahead and do that, but we need to establish a caloric deficit, right? So I've talked about before, knowing what your normal is. If you've already established a baseline, you can go ahead and take that. You've already established a baseline, log in your daily intake. You know how to weigh and measure food at this point, or what, perhaps what a serving of lean meat looks like, or, nuts and seeds, stuff like that. We can go ahead and start to establish what our daily macronutrient breakdown should be, or caloric intake, if you want to actually be a little bit more precise here. So this formula here was given to me by my trainer, and it is for somebody that's active, right? So meaning they're doing weight training about 4 to 5 times a week and doing about 3 to 4 hours of cardiovascular activity, like running or walking or what have you. So this formula here is for that. If you want to change that, if you don't want to make any changes to your fitness, working out or anything, take this formula and change it by a numeral of 10. Change that by 10. So in this example, we take our body weight. So for example, of a 200-pound person, let's say I'm 200 pounds, I want to lose some weight. I take that times it by 12, I get 2,400 calories a day as my total calories I want to intake. And then I go ahead and do a little bit more math here. So the second step here is to take the total daily calories, step 2, times it by 0.3. We need to equal up to 100%, right? So we got 0.3, 0.4, and 0.3 at the bottom. So the first one is 0.3. We then get an equation, we divide it by 4, and then we get our total grams of protein per day, which is 180 grams for a 200-pound person, which roughly equates out to 720 calories. And at this point, you might be asking yourself, if you're not familiar with this, why is there a difference in the 4, 4, and 9 there? That's because protein and carbs each have 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 per gram. So there's a little bit different equation for them. So we get 180 grams of protein for the second step, 240 for carbs, and 80 grams for fat. As you can see, 80 grams of fat equals basically the same amount as 180 grams of proteins. It's over double the amount. So it's just one of those things to keep mindful of. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. What does the 12 stand for?
The 12.
200 times 12, like what does the 12 represent?
Oh, so it's just a rough equation about where you are with your body weight. And it's just a generalization. So if it doesn't work for you at this point, so let's say you do times 12 and you're not losing any weight, go ahead and take that down by 11 or then by 10. It's just a very general rough estimation.
Sure, right, but where do you get the 12 from?
Just from general guidelines. Just state it, go ahead.
It's basically, that's about how many calories your body is.
Exactly, yeah. Well, not just to function, but to actually lose weight.
Right.
Yeah.
It's 12 on that.
Exactly, yeah.
Is it 12 for active people, you said?
I'm sorry?
Is it 12 for active?
Yes, 12 for active, and then if you don't want to make any changes to your lifestyle, try 11, and if that doesn't work, try 12, or 10 at that point. Go ahead.
Can you reverse though? Instead of putting 200, could you put the weight that you would want to be at, whether you're losing or gaining,
So
and then work it out?
if you want to gain weight?
Yeah, for example.
So yeah, so my my knowledge base on this is more on losing weight. But yeah, so there are some recommendations. I can put you in contact with somebody for that. He can definitely help you out. But yes, so take it by 13 and try to gain something. So, or try 14 at that point. I think it's 14. Specifically, I got this from my trainer, Josh Citron. This is just a very rough estimation, right? So but over time and throughout monitoring other people, it's been shown to actually work. So if you would like even more precision, I would recommend hiring hire the consultant and have someone that actually holds you accountable. I know that I need that, at least in my life. Someone to report to and make me actually report into them, on a weekly basis, like what I was doing and how things were progressing. Go ahead.
What if most healthcare providers provide a dietitian that could provide you some guidance on this, or do you think that it's actually beneficial to engage in external consulting?
So the question was if your healthcare provides you a dietitian.
Yeah. Do you think it would be beneficial to actually engage an external dietitian or professional?
I would recommend consulting somebody that actually has the expertise in this. So yeah, so whether that's for free through your healthcare or if you go out to an external source, online coaching is very big right now, and distant training is very big. So I would just seek that out. And whether or not it's provided for free, I can't say to not listen to somebody that's a healthcare professional because I'm not a doctor. So does that make sense? Go ahead.
So as pen testers, we might have certifications or qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something similar to that for fitness coaches?
Yeah.
Like how do you interview or how do you find out that the person you're talking to really is helpful?
Exactly. So I would go off basically the same way that we do in our own professions, right? We have these conferences. We have people that we trust, I guess, and we know people that things have worked for, I guess, and I would go off pure recommendation. But there are certifications, but just like there are certifications with, I'm not going to name any certifications. I almost did. Caveat and buyer beware there a little bit, but it's a very tricky process. But I would go with the default of looking to a friend and see what worked for them. If it worked for them, if that guy worked for them, then maybe it'll work for you. I don't know. Does that answer the question? Yeah. But there are definitely certifications out there, like the quote I had up there before from Precision Nutrition. They're one of the harder ones to actually get a certification from. So I think it's like the OSCP of nutrition, basically. So go ahead. I'm sorry?
Well, you are happy with the weight that you're at, you want to maintain that.
You want to maintain the weight. So I guess if you're going the way you want to go, then that's fine. You can still do, if you're not changing at all, then I wouldn't recommend trying to do anything like this. If you're just going along, you're seeing steady process and nothing's changing that you don't like, then, go for it. But you can also go back, baseline your activity, like I mentioned before, baseline your activity, and then see if anything's changing. So if you're losing weight and stuff like that, I don't want to make anyone feel bad if they're gaining weight or anything like that. That's not the purpose of my talk here. I just want to try to convey some information to help other people. Go ahead.
How do you recommend going about establishing a baseline? Would you recommend keeping a food log? Or
Yes.
An activity log prior to going to some kind of specialist or consultant or personal trainer?
Yes, so to baseline, I would recommend tracking everything every day. So everything you put inside yourself, banana, that sounded very weird. All right, I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. Everything you eat every day, track it all, and then just look it up on MyFitnessPal and see what the actual calories are that you're actually intaking every day. there are a lot of different things you can do. You don't have to use a technology like MyFitnessPal to do that. You can actually just write it down in a food journal. But that kind of brings me to a little bit more, like I mentioned before, if you want a little bit more precision and you want someone to actually give you the answers and you don't want to think about any of this stuff, hire somebody that can actually help you there here. And again, buyer beware. It's all in what you give into it. Like I mentioned before, you can have the greatest fitness expert in the world or nutrition expert, but if you don't actually apply the principles and what they're telling you to do, it's not going to work out for you. So you actually have to trust the process. So whoever you choose out there, that's all on you. I can recommend some people. I'm not going to go on stage, but I can recommend people that I know of. But yeah, you have to actually apply those principles to your life. It's not going to work unless you do it. Go ahead.
Not a question, just a comment. If you're in this area, Kroger grocery store, they have a place called Little Clinic there, and they have dietitians on staff.
Oh, nice.
And then you can get like package deals, like, hey, I want this, like, if you've got heart problems, you need a diet that helps with heart, reducing that. So they'll go with you and like make sure you buy the right things to do, so you don't like hurt your heart or whatever.
Nice. He was saying his local grocery store Kroger's has dietitians on staff that can help you out there. So there's people out there that can give you advice. And I know I'm running short on time here, so I'm going to try to wrap things up. I have a few more slides. One of the things I learned throughout doing this was to be a little bit agnostic in my eating principles. I kind of went from a very strict, paleo or low carb, keto type way, or whatever it happens to be, and I kind of created what's known as what I like to call the taco method. So my basic diet, there are rooms there's room for your favorite foods inside of this journey, basically. Quote unquote dieting. There's room for whatever you like, as long as you have the knowledge behind it and make an informed decision about what you're actually going to intake into yourself. Does that make sense? You don't have to give up everything you want. You actually have to be informed to know what you're actually going to do. So I don't think there are any bad foods out there, quote unquote bad foods. Food is neutral, right? There's no bad food out there, in my opinion. Your feelings around it can severely cause you some stress sometimes, like, oh, I ate this, I ate that. It's totally neutral. It's just your feelings around it. There's room for all those things. There's just not, if you have a specific goal, there's room for a little bit of it, perhaps not as much as you would like. Does that make sense? So food is neutral, but your feelings could be stressful. If you have a cheat meal, you need to know how it fits into your goal, your overall goals there. Like I said, I've been basically for the last 6 months eating tacos to lose weight, and I did that by I talked about learning how to cook. I learned how to cook those tacos, so I make my tortillas. I know exactly the caloric intake inside of each of those, right? So, I have one taco, it's roughly 11 grams of carbs and stuff like that, and I throw some meat on top and a little bit of cheese, and then I have a basic building block of food there. And I love tacos. So. I almost wore a tacos and tequila shirt. I did not today, so I went against that one. So, if you want, actually, I have all my slide notes on tacomethod.com. So if you want to go there, it's on a basic blogger site. So it's tacomethod.com. But basically, yeah, it's all my slide notes, and I'll have some more information about my journey and what I guess I would recommend, or what I've done that worked for me. Again, just that's worked for me, I guess, in this point. Some other things we have to consider when we're on this transition or journey, or other cliche we want to say right here, is that we have to deal with some setbacks, right? We have to all keep in mind that we are human beings, and we're going to make a mistake, and we're going to slip up, right, here and there. And like I said, there's no bad food, but if you go over, like if you're logging things and you went over, then, be honest with yourself. Forgive yourself, one. It's not that bad. That's not that big of a deal, right? A lot of people beat themselves up over nothing, right? Forgive yourself, but also at that same point, be honest with yourself and then just start back over again. You can't cry over spilled milk. The milk. Excuse me. It's water. Just be honest with yourself and forgive yourself, and get back on the horse. Some other things I ran into. I'm coming to the end of my presentation here. Traveling and nutrition. Some of the things that I learned with traveling is that preparation was key. If I don't prepare and I stay up too late and I have to catch my 5 a.m. flight or 6 a.m. flight and I have to wake up at 4 or 3, something crazy, I'm not going to be prepared. I'm going to be running out the door and I probably forget something, right? And one of those things would be probably eating something in the morning. So when I get to the airport, I eat the first thing I can grab. So preparation is key there, especially when going to client sites or traveling for a week or 2 weeks, however long you have to be away. Some of that comes into play with knowing what's inside of food, basically. And they don't really teach us in schools. They don't teach you what's the caloric value of taco or of tortilla, right? So we don't really know what's inside of beef jerky, right? We know it's meat, but how many grams of protein or X, Y, and Z. So just knowing what's inside the food can help you then later on determine or actually look up. Now we can look up all these things, nutrition guidelines on the internet about what restaurants we can go to fit my goals. And my example, I would go to Chipotle, or if I get the burrito fully loaded, I know it's going to have a lot more calories inside of it than I actually need to fit my goals. But I can also go to, let's say, the most dirtiest word in fast food, Taco Bell. I can go there and still get a same thing that's similar and still fits my needs. And I can go to like McDonald's. You know, that's everyone's favorite thing to beat up on, right? McDonald's makes people gain weight and stuff like that. But you can go to those places and still eat within your guidelines as long as you have the informed choice. And that's one of those things that I would like you to take away from here. So knowing what restaurants you can go to. Also bringing some food if necessary, such as whey protein or Quest bars, jerky, stuff like that. Just being prepared a little bit, like taking a little bit of time ahead of time to do this stuff. Buy some supplies when you reach your hotel. I've done multiple times when I first get to my hotel. I will go to the grocery store and buy some groceries, right? Basic stuff. And if they're perishable, like meat and stuff like that, or like lunch meat, stuff like that, I first, ahead of time, preparation, I call the hotel, make sure that there's going to be a mini fridge at the hotel, just so I can store certain things that may spoil. But if not, if you can't do that, then just buy some fresh fruit and eat that. So if you have to eat out and be a normal human being and go eat and feed yourself, client dinners and socializing, I would just apply the veggies and lean meat rule. So try to have the servings of vegetables, like I mentioned before, and lean meats, right? And stay away from pretty much everything else. There are a lot of fats and carbs that are hidden in restaurant foods, especially in their preparation, such as oils, fats, butter, stuff like that. So just be aware of that. So try to apply the veggie and lean meat rules there. If you're going to drink, which you probably are this weekend, if you do, try. This weekend I would not limit anything in my recommendation, but if you're out at a normal dinner or something like that, try to keep it down to 2 to 3 drinks a night. Again, it's all on your preference, and I would try to tend towards clear liquors, gin, clear tequila, stuff like that, and calorie-free mixers. Alcohol in itself is not ideal for fat loss because it's empty calories. There is no nutritional value out of alcohol. So it's all, your body has to burn that first before it burns anything else. So when you imbibe that stuff, it's going to have to burn that first before it burns anything else that's going to reach your goals. What's that? Oh. Stay hydrated with water throughout the meal or night on the town. So keep water with you. Again, keep in mind that we're trying to get half your body weight in water per day, and especially if you're drinking, try to intake more water. One thing I would recommend is, like, if you go out to eat, tell the servers to take away any bread they bring to the table, if that's your goal. Right? If you're trying to stay on track and you're trying to be mindful, if they bring bread at the table. That's one of the things that people I will annihilate bread. Like, it's my favorite thing, and yeah, I will annihilate bread in an instant. So just tell them to take it. If you can't control yourself, just tell them to take it away for you, or push it to the farthest corner of the table for yourself. So that brings me towards the tail end of here. Is that just seek some support through community also as well. There's a group online called Body Hackers on Facebook. If you just look up Body Hackers, we're a group of people that are just trying to basically support each other and progress. Well, there's a lot of trolling. There's a lot of trolling, but no one's going to make you feel bad about what you're doing in your choices. So there's a lot of people we're going to encourage you, right? There's also a lot of trainers out there too that will have online groups that will support your progression or your journey throughout this course. So no one's going to make fun of you for posting a progression picture or something like that. If anything, it's going to be about BMI or something crazy like that. So for you, Kim. And one of the things that I've come to take away is that, like, there have been multiple times, like, I posted something or I've just ran into somebody, and they've said, I really appreciate what you posted before, and it inspired me to actually do X, Y, and Z. And I don't know this person, but, something I did or the way I said it actually affected them. And it inspired them maybe, I guess, a little bit. Like, not to toot my own horn, but, like, you never know who you're going to inspire by what you say. So share your successes and share your knowledge on things to the best of your ability. And you never know where you're going to run into somebody that has been inspired and impacted their life, right, in a meaningful way. So share your successes and accomplishments, please. And then lastly, here, just a little perspective, right, and what we're talking about here, because it's a little bit vain, I guess, what we're talking about, or at least for me, I guess, considering. There's a little bit of perspective necessary for some folks to keep in mind here. Denying foods for the purposes of looking better is really only a luxury for a very, very minority of people, right? We're very lucky to be in that category that actually be considering this as a possibility for ourselves, right? In no time in human history has limiting food been a thing that people do. There's just a little bit of perspective there, and if you can't do it, if it's failing you, don't beat yourself up about it, right? Just remind yourself that it is a perspective to keep in mind, I guess, is what I'm trying to beat across here without being too, without proselytizing here. And then lastly, I have some resources here. Like I said, I have tacomethod.com. It's a very basic blogger site. I just put it up last night on the whim. Precision Nutrition is where I got some of the recommendations for the fistful of vegetables, stuff like that. There are some links there, free tools for men and women based upon whatever you want. Some basic workout programs. Nick Tumello on Teen Nation is just a very simple 5-day, it's actually a 3 to 5 day course. And then Nate Palmer, he has a travel workout program just based on dumbbells and stuff like that. Basically what you would see in a travel gym or hotel gym. And Complete Human Performance at the bottom there. And then also liveyourfitness.com. There's also resources there for nutrition as well. Other than that, I have gone over by 4 minutes, so I think I'm the last talk, right?
Yep.
Do I have time for questions or anything?
Yeah, should.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Well, you're actually a question about speaking about working out when traveling. There's an app called 7, for example. There are many, on both iOS and Android, that basically a circuit of 7 minutes, 30-second exercises that require no weights or no preparation.
Yeah, there's a lot of apps I just found out about yesterday too that I was unaware of, like alarms that can remind you to actually do things, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different resources out there. So it all depends on what you would like in your life. Good? It's not resolving? Are you serious?
Yeah.
It's not negative resolution? I'll change that, all right. Yeah, I'll update the DNS record. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.